welcome to my Tuesday podcast. This is Gene Trowbridge from the Trowbridge Law Group. We're attorneys that work in the area of securities law. And my partner and our staff are happy that you joined us today. Today, I'm going to be talking about COVID. COVID is all over everywhere, and there are a lot of topics on COVID. I haven't done anything on COVID in my podcast yet, but I thought today I would do a couple things for you and maybe I will ask for your help when it's over. So I have to put a disclaimer in here because I'm going to give you some clauses that I use in offering documents to talk about COVID. Now, I'm not your attorney. You're welcome to take these clauses, but I would show them to your attorney. I wouldn't use them until your attorney approves of them. This is an educational event, and I just want to show you something that we're doing. So the first clause has to do with inspecting the property. Here's an issue. You go out to buy an apartment house. You go to buy a retail center with multi-tenants. You may very well be faced with an issue that people won't let you in the stores. The stores aren't open. The stores aren't attended by people right now. The apartment buildings, the tenants in the apartments won't let you in. The manager won't let you in. The owner won't let you inspect. So that's a problem with having the full inspection that we normally would have. So here's the clause that I wrote that covers that. And for those of you who aren't looking at it, I'm going to read it to you so you get some idea. And you can go back and watch the podcast if you want and capture this. It says the manager, that would be the manager of the offering, will use reasonable commercial efforts. Reasonable, okay? We're not going to be able to do everything we want, but we're going to do the best we can. Reasonable commercial efforts to inspect the property. But all such efforts will be exercised in the light of the COVID-19 virus, the attendant circumstances, the developing healthcare responses, directives and protocols adapted at the local, state, and national level, as well as those adopted internally by the manager, the seller, and or its property manager. There's a risk that the COVID-19 protocols may affect accessibility to the property. That's really the key, including individual tenant units. Such COVID-19 protocols may not provide a basis for a claim that the manager has not had the ability to properly investigate the property. So basically what we're telling the investors here is we're going to do the best we can in light of the circumstances. If in the future we find that we bought a property in an apartment building and one of the tenants had COVID, we did the best we could. If as an investor, you're not happy with this, don't buy the investment. That's just as simple as it is. This had some meaning in a little different way for me and my family. My daughter was living up in LA, about 60 miles from us, in a huge apartment complex. And the apartment complex came down with 5 or 6 cases of COVID. And as I talked to her on the telephone, I said, well, you're like on a cruise ship where a couple people have got COVID, but you're not traveling anywhere. You've got to get out of there and you've got to come home. So she packed up her 2 dogs and came home. And that was in February, and she's still here. Her lease is up. We vacated the apartment, but that was trouble. So that's a warning that I think we should put in the PPMs. I put in the PPMs to tell the investors that we may very well not have been able to do a full inspection. Now, there's another warning that we have, and this has to do with collecting rents, evictions. And I think we have to put this in the PPM also to tell the investors that, rent collections might not be as strong during COVID as they were before. And once again, I'll read this to you. This warning is called eviction moratorium. In light of the COVID pandemic, federal and local governments have adopted eviction moratoriums or similar rules, which make it difficult or impossible to evict residential tenants under certain conditions. Expansion or extensions of any such moratoriums, which has been promoted by a presidential and congressional leadership, may have a significant impact on our ability to collect rent from the tenants at the property. And going on, just thinking about it, if we're not collecting rent, we also may not be able to evict the tenant. So this is something you might put in your PPM. And if it's in a particular state that has a particular rule, I might research that and I might put that in my PPM so the investor knows that there's a possibility that COVID might affect rent collections. So those are two clauses that I think some version of those clauses should be put in the private placement memorandum. And where are they going to go? Well, here's my slide on all the areas that are in a private placement memorandum. And these would go up front early on in the discussion of risks. That's where we should put these clauses. Now, this all comes back to something I talk about all the time. I tell investors there are 4 questions you must ask before you invest in a syndication. And the first question is, Gene, if I give you my $50,000 and invest in the deal, what happens if something happens to you? Okay. Now you can think of all sorts of things that might happen to the manager. How about bankruptcy, divorce, a lawsuit from the other property? It could be death, sure. But today, we've got another thing to concern ourselves with. We've got an issue of what if the manager, what if the key principal, what if the people who are running the investment get knocked down and get sick with COVID? Can it be? Could it be deadly? It could be. It might not be, but they might be in the hospital for a month. Well, that's when you need a plan. And my answer to that question is always, as a manager of a syndication, as a syndicator, you've got to have a team. You've got to have continuity. So that's another reason why you should ask this question and why it's always the first question of the 4 questions that I think are important. And what are the other ones? The other ones, hey, have you done this before? Do you have skin in the game? And what happens if I need my liquidity? Those are the 4 questions, but this podcast is talking about this question. And that's really all I have for today. I want you to contact me, contact our company if you have any questions. Another thing I'd like you to do, if you've seen any clauses, because not all of you use us as your attorney, I wish you would, but if you've seen any PPMs with any clauses about COVID, it would be great if you just copy them and email it to me. I'll send you thank you. I'll send you a Trowbridge law group, a TLG coffee cup, and they're pretty attractive. And I'll do that if you send me one of your clauses. You can just send it right to Gene at Trowbridge Law Group. Now, this podcast always broadcasts at 10 o'clock Pacific time on Tuesdays. Mine are on Tuesdays. Jonathan's are on Thursdays. Another thing I can alert you to is that we have a series of interviews we're doing with people in the syndication business. And they run Thursday at 12 o'clock Pacific time, and they're on our YouTube channel. And it's simply YouTube/Trowbridge Law. Thanks a lot. Have a great day, and we'll see you next Tuesday on my next Facebook Live. Bye.